As technology is bound to rule our present and future, it's important that students today are comfortable learning how to use technology, especially the internet, to access a variety of information. Students today have the capability of learning anywhere at any time thanks to technology. Providing students with an opportunity to learn and discover new information found online helps to meet the learning needs of a diverse group of learners, makes learning more engaging for all students, and allows teachers to have access to a variety of materials to pick from that were not previously available or accessible. One way that students can learn and explore new facets of the topics they learn about in the classrooms are through webquests. So what exactly is a webquest?
Well, the short definition is that a webquest is simply good teaching with the web. But being a professor, of course, there's a longer definition. So I would say the longer definition is first that it's a constructivist lesson format, that it's wrapped around a doable and interesting task that is ideally a scaled-down version of something that adults do, that it's a lesson in which most of the material that the learners deal with comes from the web, although not necessarily all. It's a lesson format in which you don't have kids searching for information, you have them using it. So they don't use Google very often. The resources are pre-selected by the teacher or designer who put the webquest together. Often, but not always, students, learners take on roles while going through a webquest because that allows them to see the situation or the problem through different perspectives and different roles. But the critical attribute of a webquest is that it involves higher level thinking.
Next are the different components of the webquest.
Webquests are all built primarily in the same way. They all start off with an introduction of some sort that leads to the task that students need to complete, and then finally the process for completing it. It's in the process that you get to include things like worksheets and guides and instructions, and even hyperlinks to resources so that students can successfully meet the tasks that you've set out for them. Of course, you'll need an evaluation that tells students how you'll be assessing them and how you'll be grading them and what they need to do to successfully complete your project, and then a conclusion that lets them know if they were on the right track and what they can do in the future to extend the activity or learn more about it.
So how did webquest originate?
Well, it came in a fit of panic in 1995 when I was preparing a class for pre-service teachers. I did a webquest about a program called Archetype, and it just went so well that I decided right then and there that I wanted to do this more often. So I gave it a name. I put up a web page in which I described the idea, and people began to find it. And soon the idea just took off like crazy.
The ethics of webquest.
The characteristic of webquest is that it walks that tightrope between structure and freedom. That there's enough constraint around it so the learners have to learn what you want them to learn, but they're given enough freedom that they can make the information their own.
What kind of conclusions can we gather from using webquest?
I assume that authentic tasks are more engaging. Kids from the beginning of schooling right through grad school have had more than enough textbook problems that aren't really part of the real world and are inauthentic. So that using the World Wide Web allows us to bring in real problems with real data about real people and places. I'm also assuming that learning is enhanced by social interaction among learners, that we learn when we think out loud, when we argue with each other, when we have to correct each other's mistakes and listen to each other, so that learning alone is less effective than learning in groups. I assume also that higher level thinking is such a critical skill, such a critical attribute in a world that changes every 10 minutes, that we need to develop it as early as possible, and that's why webquests are applicable down to about 3rd grade or so. And another assumption I make that's sort of baked into the format itself is that uncertainty is not always a bad thing, that a certain amount of uncertainty and doubt is instructionally useful. So a good webquest is one in which The learners are given a problem that initially seems out of their reach and may seem sort of doubtful that they could ever complete it, but then you throw enough support at them so that they can do that.
In summary, a webquest is an inquiry-oriented online tool for learning. This means it is a classroom-based lesson in which most or all of the information that students explore and evaluate come from the World Wide Web. Beyond that, webquests can be as short as a single class period or as long as a month-long unit. Usually, though not always, they involve group work, but they are always built around resources that are pre-selected by the teacher. Students spend their time using the information, not looking for it. For more information on webquest info, design, and ideas, go to www.webquest.org.